the outside world. Oh, it is much nicer without the case, isn't it? Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to Magome Japan. So last week, Apple announced the iPhone 11 Pro and of course the iPhone 11. And I've had my hands on it for the past week or so, and I've been getting some shots of it. I even went to the event itself. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about the photography modes and the camera specifically on the iPhone 11 Pro. I've got the Max version here, but it should be pretty much the same on the iPhone 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 is similar, but has a few limitations. And of course, I'm going to be shooting in some daytime scenarios, but I do have plans to do some nighttime photography in a future video when I return to Tokyo, because I think that's going to be a pretty cool setting for some night stuff. Let's run through what's new with the iPhone and how it differs and all these incremental upgrades, because this is, as I said in my first impressions, kind of like the XS. It's a incremental upgrade. It's not a huge, massive increase on previous versions. However, depending on where you're upgrading from, you may feel big improvements, but it may not be the full justification for the $1,000 plus that you would spend on this phone. So with this being a device that's been loaned to me as a pre-release device, I need to be very careful about showing it in public and stuff. So I'm not able to kind of flex my creative skills all that much. However, I can still hopefully show a lot of the details and sort of functionality of the camera. These just may not be my best images, of course. So we've now got 3 cameras on the back to work with, all of which are 12 megapixels. There is the main camera, which is the wide. In terms of a full frame field of view, this is the equivalent of a 26mm and has a f1.8 aperture. It also has optical image stabilization and 100% focus pixels across the whole sensor. There's also the tele lens, which we've known on previous models. This is now a f2.0 aperture and also has the optical image stabilization and the equivalent field of view of a 52mm lens. Now the new addition for this year is the ultra wide. This has the equivalent of a 13mm and has an aperture of a 2.4. This, however, doesn't have optical image stabilization. In terms of ultra wide, the angle of view is 120 degrees, so that is a extremely wide view. I personally don't like shooting too wide. I like to control my distortion and maintain verticals correctly. So those are the 3 options on the back of the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. But on the iPhone 11, we only have the 2 lenses, and that is the ultra wide and the wide, both of which will be the exact same hardware that we've got on the 11 Pro, so the camera quality for those 2 field of views will still be identical. So for iOS 13 on these new iPhones, we've got a new interface to work with in the camera app. So I'm talking predominantly with the native camera app. Of course, you can use third-party apps, but unfortunately, because this is a pre-release model, you can't access the ultra-wide when using third-party apps just yet. So with this new interface, we've got what's kind of like a new rangefinder style, where you can actually compose your shot as standard, but using data from the ultra-wide lens, we can actually see what's outside of the frame. So this is when you're shooting in the wide mode and the tele. So this is similar to what I have when I'm using the optical viewfinder on my X100F, or if you're using an old-style rangefinder. It's really great for street photography because you can just kind of see action happening just outside and you can quickly work to it. If you don't like shooting in that mode, you can actually change it in your settings. Equally, if you shoot in the tele or the wide mode, after you've actually taken your shot, you can go into your photos, you can edit and get extra data from that ultra wide. This is pretty great. Again, it can auto do this. I've actually disabled it because I always want to have my composed shot as I took it. But if you like, you can have iOS do it automatically, which is a nice feature for the general user. We've also got certain controls now grouped together, such as the aspect ratio, the self-timer, and other features. They're all hidden under a little sliding area. One of my favorite features is the new shutter design. So you can just tap to take a photo as normal in photo mode, or you can tap and hold if you want to quickly do a video mode. When you're holding, you can slide to the right and that will lock it into a complete video mode, and then you just have a stop button, or you can just release and it will just stop filming. The other option is when you're holding, if you slide to the left, that will change it into a burst photo mode. There's also a new night mode that I mentioned previously. I have taken some shots already in the nighttime, but I want to spend more time kind of exploring it and kind of experimenting around with it, especially with varying light in dark scenes. What's nice with this, and this is so typical of Apple, is that it is an automatic on or off feature. So you don't have to go into a separate mode, it just enables when you need it. You can always disable it if you want to, but as is true with most Apple products, it is seamless as an experience. So overall, as a shooting experience on the iPhone 11 Pro, this has been fairly stable and pretty much the same experience that you've come to know and love with previous iPhones with those incremental upgrades. But one of the features that I really love about this, and it kind of explains why we've got this ugly sort of 3-lens system going on, is that when you change between the camera modes, there is little to no color shift or change of exposure and white balance as you zoom through those. You can get a really smooth experience. I've used other phones. I actually have the Huawei P20 Pro, the OnePlus 5T, and I've even shot with the OnePlus 7, and all of those have kind of had jarring experiences and just not quite in the same seamless way. The reason I mentioned the 3-way system is because all of these lenses are equidistant from each other, and I'm sure the way that Apple have designed it is so that when you are changing, there's no significant jump in sort of angle of view and whatever in your composition, and the software does really well to make it a smooth experience. You can see a slight change if you do it slowly, but for the most part it is a smooth experience. With this new 3-way design, I have found myself kind of getting my fingers in the way sometimes, so you do just need to change the way that you shoot. One of the extra features that I'm noticing on it is there's a metal ring around the lens, so I'm wondering if that's magnetic, similar to the DJI Osmo Pocket. So I'm hoping third parties will be able to make some filters that you can magnetically stick onto there, because that is one thing that you can suffer with on smartphone when shooting in bright conditions such as this. So something I would love to see in the shooting experience within the native app is a built-in level. So the ability to just see when your shot is level. In particular, this would be so useful on the verticals, especially when shooting with that ultra wide, because you do get some serious distortion. It takes a lot of skill to be able to shoot correctly in ultra wide. Now, one thing that I am kind of worried about as a global phenomenon, because the iPhone is literally the most popular camera in the world, how is this ultra wide going to change trends within photography? To the general user, they're kind of going to be taking shots that, you know, just fill groups or just get everything in frame. And from a creative perspective, you may start to see very trendy, distorted images, or rather very popular images being distorted. And I'm just wondering how that's going to affect digital photography as this moment in history, because the iPhone is so popular. That being said, the variety of lenses is a huge bonus. It is amazing creative control, because to zoom from the ultra wide to the wide to the tele is actually a significant difference. So I've got some examples that show how you can go between the three and how it really changes, and the detail you can see in it is really impressive. Basic editing of the photos within the Photos app is adequate. It's good to kind of get you started. I personally prefer to use Lightroom, and again, I use Lightroom Mobile quite a lot when I'm shooting. Equally, I can use the Lightroom camera, but as I said, you can't use the ultra wide currently on that. Likewise, it would be nice to have a filter on there that I could shoot in a flatter color profile so that I can edit things further. And the biggest thing that is an issue for me is there is no raw photo mode in the native camera app. I'm going to keep mentioning this because Apple are marketing this as a pro photography mode, and can you really call it pro photography mode if it doesn't have RAW? I don't think so. This is marketing at its kind of most obvious, but unfortunately it just doesn't hit the mark on its name. Now, it's not to say that the phone can't do it, because third-party apps can shoot in RAW. There are APIs for that. So the hardware is definitely capable. You can do that. It's nice to have that button on the home screen to go straight to the native app. And that brings me to my next thing, which is missing from this phone, which I do sorely miss, and that is the 3D touch. So there's no longer the 3D touch to tap that camera icon on the home screen. You don't have to do the new touch on here with the haptic feedback. It still works in the same way, but the response just isn't quite the same, and I do miss that. There have been some improvements to portrait mode, so again, utilizing the new A13 Bionic chip and the new GPU, as well as a lot of machine learning, there's been a lot better processing for skin tones and more details, and actually separating the way that lighting hits certain subjects within a frame. In terms of overall speed, I mean, iPhones have always been fast for me, so yes, this is faster, but am I really noticing it? I mean, it's smooth, but can I really notice it in the same percentage difference that they're advertising? I think it's beyond fast at this point to really be able to spot that. One thing I have noticed though is the battery life definitely is significantly better. So using the Max version, it's even better than just the regular iPhone Pro. And I guess with the improvements to the processing and the chip and the graphics and everything, this is great for the real-time processing. This is what Apple are known for. The fact that what you are composing through the viewfinder is what you see as the shot actually happens. There's one thing I noticed with other smartphones is that quite often what you're actually composing and the experience of what you're seeing isn't that similar to the end result, and it's kind of jarring to know if you got the shot or not. Usually the end results are great, but it's that viewfinder experience that sometimes just has me questioning, did I get the shot? Did I not? The HDR in the photo seems natural and has a good creative taste. Other manufacturers that I've seen have kind of blown up the shadows to reveal all of the details, and sometimes it just looks a bit too over-processed and just not to my taste. I generally like to work on my images and have a nice natural shadow fall off and highlight roll off. And I think that's where there's a difference in opinion between different smartphones for photography. Some people just like to see an image that looks great straight out of camera. Other people like to see one that's maybe a little bit more natural. But generally speaking, you should always shoot with the cameras that you feel most comfortable with. It doesn't matter, you know, which brand it is, just shoot with the one that makes you happy and that gets the results you were expecting. One little surprise that Apple released was an improvement to the front-facing camera. They didn't really shout about this too much, but this is now a 12 megapixel that also shoots 4K in video mode. Now, of course, there are some negatives that I'm not enjoying about the new iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. The 12 megapixels are nice. I would say that 16 megapixels would probably be ideal. That would match the same what we had on the Fujifilm X-T1 and X-T10, for example. They were more than adequate for most users. You don't want to go too high for such a small sensor, but equally 16 megapixels is kind of like the sweet spot in terms of if you want to print things and just extra detail on today's high resolution displays. The lack of 3D touch for the camera icon is noticeable. It's a difference in experience, and I'm not a fan with it. I've been shooting with it for about a week or so, and yeah, I've still not got used to the fact that it's different. I sorely miss that. I'm not the biggest fan of the design of the lens arrangement on the back, but I do understand the theory behind it with the equidistant sort of design of it. I guess it's more noticeable on the colored version, so I've got the midnight green here, and because the actual lenses themselves are black, it does stand out, whereas if you had the black device with the black backing, it's maybe less noticeable. That's just my opinion on it. It doesn't bother me too much, but you know, it's not the best. I will say though that when you look at the images, it's a little bit jarring, but when you see it in person, it's less of a jarring experience. So that just about wraps up all of my thoughts for the photography experience on the new iPhone 11 Pro. I'm going to be doing a future video on the filming experience, so I'm going to be heading back to Tokyo soon and making the video there, so I'm looking forward to that. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with other people who would also enjoy it. Post it on social media or on Reddit, or you know, wherever you like to share your things. And if you're new to the community, then I invite you to subscribe and hit the bell notification. You'll get updates on those new videos. I do a lot of travel videos on here, and I'm making things that are generally kind of like a bit more of a premium style vlog. So if you're into that, then make sure you do subscribe, and I will be seeing you in a future video soon. Alright, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you later. Bye bye.